Okay, right now I'm on the top because I can
And then
see
I'll
my,
have an argument about probability.
Boards, games, it's what we're talking about. Boards, games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this morning with a little bit of singing, although where I might be watching, for you it might be evening. But today we are going to be making something, and that might be something we can get to playing. Maybe by the end of the show, we'll have a prototype, I don't know. Because what will be, that will be, and I guess that's what we're gonna see. Board games being made, it's what we're talking about. Board games being made. I'm not gonna shout. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good night, good whatever it is, wherever you are. And hello, Sates, it is lovely to see you. I am, of course, Bez. This is another episode 286 of the Bezzy Beats and Board Game Bledder Show, formerly known as all sorts of stuff, but let's not get into that. Today we are game jamming with Dina Ramse. Am I saying that correctly?
Close enough.
No, you can correct me.
Okay. Ramse.
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 Okay, so I've been told that if you think of it as it being German, but you're actually speaking English in a slight York accent, apparently that should work.
Okay, Dina Ramse.
So I've got to talk in like a Yorkshire accent, like Chuck, Yorkshire type thing.
Yeah.
But got to talk, I'm saying, German, so it'd be Ramse, like that.
See, you did it!
Yes, I see. Ramse. All right. Perfect. Didn't try. I never tried German in a Yorkshire accent before, so I like that. It works well.
This is true facts. And next week we're going to have Dina on to try and get to know her. Full name. We'll talk all about your surname there. We've kind of both times that have had a game jam with people. It's gone on 3 hours, so I'll try not to be too long. Good morning, Alex. It is lovely to see you, of course. And as I was saying before I so rudely interrupted myself, we've got Dina and we've got James. That's all I'm going to call you today. And we're going to be trying to make a game. And we had already started before we started recording.
That's how unstoppable we are when it comes to making games.
Ooh,
literally,
yeah.
it's not even time to yet, and we'll just do it anyway.
So let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So yesterday I met up with Heather, Molly, Kirsty, and Jess. And yeah, all of us chatting to each other and supporting each other. It was lovely. Yesterday morning, what was I streaming about? I remember Bohemian Rhapsody backwards. I don't remember anything else, to be honest. I sang Bohemian Rhapsody backwards twice.
Whoa.
And that was definitely a thing. I had a wee treat. That's what I was talking about. Strawberry and avocado milkshake. It was very fancy, and yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to. Where's my L's? I've drawn some letter L's. So this is potential letter shapes for the next categorical deck. I think I know which one is my favorite, but I would be interested to hear what you think. Which one do you think, James? Or Dina, or let me number them.
Okay. Oh, yes. All right, yes.
There we go.
So I think I prefer 3. I think. I personally like 3, but actually, I think 5 could work quite nicely too.
I was gonna say 5 to my favorite, and secondary was number 3.
Oh, there you go.
Wow, you really are in sync. Interesting.
No, yeah. What's your indeed? What's your favorite bit?
I was leaning towards 4, maybe 5, and so yep. A bunch of people catching up with chats. James has so much energy. Oh my gosh. Sorry to hear you, but of course, Xate has a sprained ankle, but Idle Michael is amazing. Gifted a code for Disney Plus, so Xate could finally see Hamilton.
Oh, nice.
Awesome. I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, never seen that. No.
Awesome.
Alex, L number 5 or 3, and definitely not 4, says Xate. Wow. Whereas, so it seems like 3 is actually a popular choice. There we go. Wow.
Yeah.
I think it has the effect of being a bit like a serif font. I think there's something quite nice about that, but sort of not. It's kind of much jazzier than a serif font would be.
Yeah.
Well, that's really... Thank you for that feedback. And talking about recent highlights, or if you've played any games or eaten anything worth talking about, let's go clockwise. James, what's been up with you?
So I think what's been really fantastic the last 2 weeks for me has been just having a lot of kind of creative energy to make things. So I've been working on a 2-player war game that I don't want to say too much about this stage, but has been tremendously enjoyable to work on that, and have spent loads of time just developing it, and having at the moment the time to do that has been brilliant. So it's one of those kind of things where you just suddenly feel quite inspired, and then you sort of are able to work through many hours at a time. Just building something is just great, and it's meant that it's gone from sort of an idea in my head to kind of quite a reasonably good prototype in the space of maybe 2 weeks, which is pretty good. So I'm very, very pleased with that. So that's been and that's just been tremendously fun, just being able to just pour my energies into that. So it's been great.
Awesome. And a quick hello to Nicholas. It's lovely to see you. And Dina, what's been up with you?
I finally got an IKEA delivery, so I did this, and I sorted all our board games and prototypes that we have in the house. So my kid is super excited now, so he can see all the games, and it's easier for him to pick out what we're gonna play. And I also shuffled things around in the living room to make it easier for us to have gaming sessions. And I got a nice little box for all my prototypes, and just got things sorted a little bit. So I'm super excited about that.
Oh, fantastic. Lovely. There's something quite enjoyable, isn't there, about like sorting through and sorting out the prototype stuff? Because it feels like it quickly just becomes total chaos. So being able to like organize it into bits where you know where you can find things, I just always find great.
Yeah, and I've been just like wrapping things in plastic bags and having elastics around them, and it was just not working.
Yeah.
And then my kid is like, "Whoa, I want to see what's in this bag!" And all of a sudden, I kind of have a new game that has 7 bits of different games in it. Oh, Bess is muted.
I'm liking this wee description of Idle Michael, who is definitely generous and solid, and more so than fluid, at least on the outside. And from one brilliant thing to another, let's talk about game jamming, which is a brilliant thing. It's a little thing which is brilliant. Game jamming. So we've talked about this. Let's just keep talking about why game jamming is brilliant. It's like collaboration, multiple energy, multiple perspectives. Many hands make light work. What's your perspective, Dina? Let's keep going clockwise.
Okay, as we all know, I am super pro for all sorts of things of collaboration, be it in marketing or game jams. I think it's great to listen to other people, get different perspectives on things, because obviously in games, you're going to love different aspects of gaming and love different mechanisms. Magic happens when you're merging two different people or more, and you're finding something that all of you can love together.
Fantastic. Yeah. No, I mean, I couldn't agree more myself. I think there is something a bit special about when you bring people with absolutely very different, maybe potentially different tastes, or as you said, different perspectives together, because you end up with getting some quite interesting results. I also think it's kind of good personally from the perspective that sometimes it involves doing something which can be a bit daunting, but is in the long term always positive, which is doing something where it's maybe out of your normal comfort zone from a design perspective. So, and I think that the fact that it has a set of rules and it's sort of those constraints themselves kind of lead to the creativity. So it's, I was reading them again yesterday, and I must admit, I don't know if I can remember all of them. So I should probably look at the link again. But they are, I find it really interesting to think about, particularly the kind of, it might not be a kind of game that I would think to design, because a lot of the games I tend to design tend to be quite large, sprawling things. So the constraint of, well, it's got to be something people can play for, like home over a stream potentially, is really, really cool, because it means it's like I'm now going to have to think in a completely new way about how I do things where I might normally default to something else. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how that all pans out.
Yeah, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what's been going on and, yeah, what kind of energy we can get together. Ooh. What happened just there?
Oh,
that was weird.
Back.
Shifting space again.
Let's move on to questionably quick questions. If anyone has any questionably quick questions, get them in the next couple of minutes before we move on to the main topic. But the first question I always like to ask is, where exactly are you? And what time is it? I am in Glasgow, on the 3rd floor. I am gazing at rooftops, and it says 10:11. I think Dina's in the magical time zone. Oh, no, wait, you're not.
I am, it's 12:12 right now. I am in 3rd floor, aka 4th floor, here in Finland, in Hämeenlinna. Overlooking a land full of snowy forests, and yeah, it's like -20 outside today, so it's like proper crispy in the air, so it's very sparkly.
Yeah,
and we have sun, which is brilliant.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, we don't generally get both of those things like very much. So you're very lucky if you get a little bit of snow and followed by sun, because that means the snow is all about to disappear. So yes, absolutely, indeed. So where I am is where I normally am if I come on the stream, which is actually in my office, which is also, but I'm on the 31st floor. So, and I'm looking out over Croydon and towards central London right now, which is it's a little bit poor visibility, so I can just about make out the Shard and the City of London, but it's a little bit grey and hard to perceive right now. So, but it's nice and light, I will say that.
So, Aquasulis asks, if you were on a first date, what game would you bring to get to know your date? And, oh my gosh, I think you've got to adapt it to what your date might have played in the past. Because frankly, I remember playing Jenga with someone who clearly didn't have a basic understanding of how things work. So, you know, like there was maybe one block removed from the middle, and then they were trying to remove that block. And yeah, of course, it was like, really, you don't understand that. But then maybe now I'm talking about it, I feel bad about, I mean, I guess really what you want to do is bring something that's really accessible, anyone can get stuck into, it's not too demanding, but something that's going to allow you a sense of performance. So maybe a storytelling game or something like that. Maybe I would actually, I know this is tooting my own horn, but I'm going to say Fable. That's what I would take to try and, do a wee story together. But we would play it with 3 story elements rather than 4.
I I think that's an interesting idea. I can actually completely see that. That would be pretty cool in terms of bringing out potentially someone's personality, right? Because I guess that's such a unique unique thing about them that will be a different aspect of it. I was going to suggest that perhaps you could produce some sort of absolutely ruthless negotiation game and then see how they sort of to test their moral fiber, to see how quickly they're prepared to completely betray you. That would be one possibility, but it might be a bit of a negative start. I don't know, it might set the wrong tone.
How about you, Dina?
It depends on what sort of person I would be going on the date with. Like, is it someone from the gaming space or not? In other words, it's very unlikely I would go on a date with someone outside of the gaming space, but in the event that I would, I probably would get... My first thought is Fog of Love, because I think it has a great set of questions and you can kind of see behind what they're answering to really gauge a lot of like how they, see the world. I think it's a neat little gift, but it does have quite a lot of components. And if you are meeting them outside of someone's home, it wouldn't really be a game I would be setting up somewhere outside of, like a person's home. So I'd have to bring something lighter. I have in the past played Magic the Gathering on a date. It involved a lot of booze.
Oh, but, wow.
Yeah. I've also played some Zombie Dice on the date, so.
So I mean, both of those are interesting choices, but particularly Magic the Gathering. How did that come about?
Well, we were meeting at a pub and they were having a Magic the Gathering tourney kind of deal, which I didn't know about when I got there. Neither did this person, but it just so happened that we both understand and know the game well enough to pick out a deck and play against each other.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you just it was one of these ones where you sort of just unsealed some cards or something that you got and then just immediately just going and playing it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool. Yeah, no, I can't imagine. Wow. I can't imagine in any scenario having been going, certainly not planning to go on I know you weren't planning to, but definitely not planning to go on a date to a Magic the Gathering tournament. That would be, wow. Yeah, I don't think I'd do that. But as you said, but fascinating. What a great
if you
story
both enjoy Magic the Gathering, I think Two-Headed Giants would be a perfect way to get to know someone.
No, that's a good point. That's a fair point. I don't know. I just think they get so cutthroat, those tournaments. I think even
Two-Headed Giants, where that means that two people are on the team, so it's teams of two.
Yeah, makes sense. No, I just thought suddenly my negotiation game concept paled into a walk in the park compared to a game of Magic the Gathering. But if you're right, if you're playing co-op against two other players, why not?
I mean, in that case, like my instinct would be to have the date on the other team, so that they would be teamed up with a random person and me on the other side, because I still kind of want to have that bickering about around the table instead of
if it's a tournament,
like,
you'll only be playing once with each other team during the entire thing. Whereas if you're on a team with your dates, then
it's true,
I guess okay. I'm going to ask a follow-up question before we get to Xate's question. Do you think, regardless of your choice, do you think that's going on a first date with someone, if you were to play a game with them, would you want to play co-op, a team game with them, or a competitive game? Like, let's say it was a double date, okay? Let's say it was a double date. Would you want to play a full co-op with, and let's say it's two pairs of people, so you and a date, someone else with their date, 4-player co-op, 4-player full competitive, or team play? Dina, which do you think?
Okay, so I would go with a semi-co-op Hidden Traitor.
Excellent.
Wow.
So something like a Shadows over Camelot, maybe, where someone might in that fact be the hidden traitor. Yeah, it's great.
That would be amazing. That's
I would suggest maybe possibly you could play Captain Sonar with them. Where you're both on the same team, because one thing I think it would genuinely do is it would break the ice very quickly if we're talking about first dates, because you have to coordinate. You're trying to shoot down or rather sink an enemy submarine, and that's very difficult to do unless you're quite well coordinated. So that could be one way to do it.
I do like what Alex is suggesting, wavelength. But would you play co-op, or would you play in 2 teams of 2? That's the question. But yeah, I do like wavelength as a way to know someone. And so yeah, feel free to carry on about that in chat, but I'm going to close the quick questionable questions there, but we will answer Xate's one, which is, what is the sound of your favorite color, James?
Oh wow, this is a question that's a lot easier to answer if you have synesthesia. Let's think about that. What would it make? What sound would it? Well, I mean, my favorite color is blue. So the sound of a blue, and the obvious one would be the sound of an ocean, possibly. So maybe waves crashing. But it might also just be the sound of bird song, because it makes me think of the sky, rather. I think that would be my answer to that one, I think.
I like the answer bird song. It's quite poetic.
But then what sort of birds? Are we talking seagulls, pigeons?
Just birds in general, all the birds.
I think maybe like a nightingale as the evening is setting in.
Oh. See, now we're talking.
Okay, and Dina, I don't know if you saw the question for you, which was, what is the flavor of your favorite color?
What is the flavor of my favorite color? I would say vanilla. I think it's because my association to mossy greens is that of pine being used as the artificial flavorings for vanilla ice creams when you're not using normal vanilla. So my association automatically goes for the vanilla flavor, because green being evergreens, that's what they're used for. Could I get any nerdier?
And so, yes, I'm just going to
song, yeah, sky.
So let me actually finish up with one question myself, leading into the main topic, which is, why did you come here? And obviously we've said that we're going to try and get to a playable prototype, but what else are you hoping to get out of the day, out of the morning, afternoon, because it's afternoon for Dina, sorry. What are you hoping to get out of the next few hours, Dina?
I would hope to have a lot of fun, throw around a lot of ideas, probably some crazy ones, to build upon, and maybe also reduce ideas that are coming in, and just see how wild it can get, really. I love ideation phases, because you're just mapping out the possibilities of what game can be is so much, and then narrowing it down to what we would actually focus on is, for me, a really interesting process.
Fantastic. For me, I think it's similar. I would say that there's an element that because I find that whole process quite stretching in terms of, like I said, about thinking about what the game design could be in terms of like something that's different to what I usually do. And I always find that if I'm focused on one thing creatively and then kind of go through that, then it means that suddenly somewhere else that pops up in another project I'm working on, I suddenly burst of inspiration there. And I think for that's really, and I think that's really great. There's something about that incubation that's somehow stimulated by new experience that that I think is always brilliant fun and always very useful.
And all of a sudden you have the missing mechanic for another game that you're working on.
Exactly.
That sounds super awesome. And so, yeah, if you've not already seen in the Discord, the key requirements are that it is playable on a stream, that people should be able to join in from chat without needing specialist components. You're allowed, if you want, to needs them to print like one thing or have maybe a couple of dice or some tokens that, or pencil paper, you know, things that people, okay, were pretty sure that people are going to have. If you want to, you can make it playable for 1 or 2 players, but it has to be playable for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. If it's playable for more, well, that's a bonus. You know, it's more accessible, but you could make something that you need to have a minimum of 3 for and a maximum for 7. That would be totally fine. Now, there are some optional restrictions, and I've talked about this so much, but maybe you can read them out, maybe pick one each and take turns and go through them. I'll duck down here and maybe you go back and forth and say what it springs in your mind. So, James, what does pie make you think of?
Pi makes me think of a circle because it makes me think of pi, the mathematical concept of a long irrational number, an infinitely long irrational number. So, well, that's what a rational number is. So that's what it makes me think of straight away.
Anything to add on to that, Dina?
Definitely circles, but then pies, as in baked pies, are also circular, or at least the best ones always are.
Oh, I want to add to that something, which is that also it makes me think of Trivial Pursuit.
Ooh.
Probably maybe the most famous pie segment thing in board games ever. So, like, that certainly, that definitely makes me think of that, yeah.
And Dina, what does something nautical make you think of?
Submarines.
Yeah,
Definitely
same thing.
submarines.
100% submarines.
I mean, preferably like old-fashioned steampunk-esque submarines, like clunky, a lot of brass.
Oh yeah. Like the one in that game, is it Red October, where the or the Red November, where the little dwarves are in a submarine?
Oh yes, yeah, exactly.
Oh, and I think Alex in chat is suggesting pie trivia, as in, what if the questions were about pie?
Yeah, why
so,
not?
like, what component, like what goes into what pie?
Yeah, well, what's the ingredients of an apple pie?
I mean, most people wouldn't think that you would put lemon in an apple pie, but there it is. You know, you would give them a little bit of a lemon wash, and they're so much nicer for an apple pie.
Yeah, and what about flour, for example? Right, like that's you know, you might think apples, but what about that's just part of apples is not an apple pie.
And then obviously we would have to think about, is it wheat flour? Is it oat flour? Is it rye flour?
Exactly.
Medium weight, lightweight, fine grain? What sort of mill grade are we talking about?
Are you using spelt, for example, or are you using a more, you know, modern, highly refined white flour? Semolina. Yeah, there you go.
My favorite is always to add a little bit of semolina into the base, because I think you get a crispier base of it.
Nice.
Okay, so convince people you're a dinosaur. James, does this spark anything?
100%. The 1993 Super Mario Brothers film is immediately what I think of there, because all in the lore they invented for it, all of the people in the parallel universe they travel to are descended from dinosaurs directly. And then there's a machine that reverses people to being back to dinosaurs. So for some reason, that one just instantly, that's what I instantly think of.
To me, it's all about yoga. There is a yoga pose that is called the dinosaur, where you grab your ankles from the inside of your legs, and you're supposed to clump. And it is one of my kids' favorite yoga poses.
Oh wow! Oh, that sounds.
Wait, so you look like a dinosaur whilst doing this yoga pose?
Yes.
Okay.
And then you kind of sway on your head, and then you go rawr.
So the going rawr is just an extra bit that your child adds.
Like you're a T-Rex with ineffectual arms, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right. So you're just sort of like grabbing and then going.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
I can show. I mean, just have to angle the camera a little.
Yeah, that's the thing. So hang on, if I did this a little bit more, if I bring it a bit lower, then it's more like this. Is it like this? Is it? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm sure I'm not nowhere near flexible enough to do it properly.
All right. So to do the dinosaur, can you see my feet now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
It's too far away. I can't see myself. Okay. So to do the dinosaur, you go with your legs inside. Grab your ankle from the back.
I see.
And then you go rah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Wow.
That is wow.
Fantastic.
I want to do that now.
I have to try that. Oh God.
It's really good for your hip positioning. Like you can really feel it.
Yeah, this is
and the whole like grabbing from the inside and then around. It's really neat.
Like that. So it's sort of like from here. It's all like oh wow.
There you go.
Wow.
Okay. So with that interlude, any more thoughts on convince people you're a dinosaur straight away?
I think I thoroughly convinced people.
I think if you eat small mammals raw, I think if you can do that, that might help convince that people that you're a dinosaur, perhaps. Or just chew directly on leaves from trees that you find around. That's another option, depending if you want to be herbivore or carnivore. And
funnily enough, just after that, I got Stream Elements reminding us all to stretch.
Yeah.
So, mime a turn. What does that make you think of?
Like you're an extra in a television show and you're in the background and you're pretending to play a board game because the director said just look like you're playing a board game, and then you're sort of doing lots of things where you hold cards and go and I don't know and go something like that.
Exactly.
That's what mime a board game mime a turn makes me think.
Or like grabbing a chip going.
Yeah, like as if you're way too into it than someone might actually be like the whole thing is just exactly like that. Yeah, exactly. And hopefully you don't put so much energy into it the director has to say cut and say look, just bring it down a notch.
Yeah, exactly.
You cheating. I'm going to kill you, and then you have like a fights in the background.
Yeah, exactly, because the extra's gone a bit too method. That's exactly it.
And going back a step, Nicholas does have a slight tangent. Do you have to specifically stick your tongue out as part of the pose? I thought this was a joke, but apparently there is a set of poses conceptually involving Kali that requires some serious tongue sticking out.
Oh wow!
It's true. Yeah, there's like face yoga, which has a couple of different positions of the tongue in your mouth that is a part of your yoga routine. There's one where you're supposed to press it in the gap between your upper teeth while breathing really slowly in and out, and you have to push and keep your jaw as relaxed as possible while pushing and then breathing. A lot of people tend to stop breathing really slowly when they're doing it because they're like, there's something in my throat almost. So yeah, it's tongue yoga exercises are quite fascinating.
That's tongue yoga is something completely different to what I expected. That's wow.
Okay. So the sound of an animal, what does that make you think of? Wow.
That's a good one. My kid really, in the middle of the night, he will sit up in bed and he will go meow, 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 which is kind of creepy at 3 a.m. But yeah, he sings some
a sort of forlorn cat that next door is sort of going, wow. Yeah, that does sound. Yeah, I've got to be honest. That does sound. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't say anything about your child, but that does sound quite creepy, if I'm honest. That's yeah.
Nothing on that. I mean, here the other day when I was sick, I woke up when he was making meow noises behind me, and I was like, "Where is he?" And I realized he was actually cutting my hair. So Yeah, he's probably like a serial killer in the making.
Oh, okay.
But he did a great job. Like, I really needed to trim the layers.
Fair enough.
It is concerning. I mean, you should ask someone's permission before you cut their hair.
Yeah, I did say it was like 4 a.m. and I was like, you didn't ask. He was like, oh, mommy, can I cut your hair? And I'm like, no. And then he like takes the huge pile of hair he's cut off me, and he goes, here you go, you can have it back.
Oh wow, that's yeah. Oh.
Yeah, kids are wonderful.
Incredible.
Wow. Okay. No printed components. Is that does that spark anything?
That sounds to me like no printed components.
It sounds like unplug your printer and do not use. Yeah. I did
Okay.
actually unplug my printer for this, just to like have the space is a no printing zone.
Sort of create the necessary karma for it, almost.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you normally start a game jam, James or Dina? What kinds of ideas are you thinking of?
Okay, so usually I ask my partner, like, what is your favorite mechanic? If you had to single it down to one mechanic that you really love just for today, not like all over, because that would probably be a bit much.
That would be, if I was going to ask that question, what my favorite mechanic would be. I really struggle with this one because I don't really have favorite mechanics. Because I am it's interesting that this last few days I've actually been thinking about this more and more and coming up with a word for it. And I actually think that most of the way that I approach game design is what I would call a simulationist approach. So I would generally take a thing that's in the real world and then try and see what I can create that would you know, from my toolbox of possible things that would bring that to life. So I think for that reason I don't normally have a favorite mechanic, to be honest. But probably if I think about games that I enjoy that have got different mechanics in them, I think there are a clutch of things I really enjoy. So we mentioned Shadows of a Camelot. I think a hidden traitor is great. That can be lots of fun. I like anything with auctions in them because I think players can dynamically price stuff, which I think is really interesting in terms of how they value things. So those are two mechanics. I don't know how well they'll work in the context of this game jam, but those are two that I really like.
I really like polyominoes. And I'm also a huge fan of anything that has to do about tiles.
Tiles are great. You can do so much with tiles.
So I was last night. I actually woke up at 2, 3 a.m. sometime, and I dumped a bunch of like a game that my brain was telling me that you should make this game, which was a polyomino flip and write, which is basically like first of all you start with a 9x9 grid, and you are going to design the layout of your house. The task is so that you're having your parents are coming over in an hour, and you need to tidy it as fast as possible. And in the game, you need to be able to place all the polyomino shapes inside the 9x9 grid without having any of the shapes going over one of the walls. And if you can't do it, depending on how many squares you have left, that is going to be clutter, and then they're going to comment on it.
Oh, I like that. That's clever. Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. So hang on a minute. So it's the pieces left over the clutter rather than the kind of gaps that you can't make, presumably.
Yeah.
Right. Nice. So you're trying to end up with the minimum amount of clutter at the end, presumably. So you have a perfectly clean house if you have all of the places in all of the things in place in their correct positions.
Yeah.
I like that, isn't it? So you can have things like tiles that could be things like could be things like get toys on the floor. It could be underwear, for that matter. It could be loads of random game prototype materials left out on the carpet.
Yep.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, exactly. That's quite cool. That's a really cool concept. I mean,
it was 3 a.m. gaming.
No, completely. I think this is really interesting because I think often what I find with these processes is I often because it's often a set of a kind of game that I don't generally design means that I don't generally have any ideas going into it as to what I would do. But what I quite like to do is think about is to take the constraint and then try and do some research into the constraint. So it would be something like with something like this. A big part of it would be something like thinking about, okay, well, what are what are other environments that also have the limitation of the rules of the game? So, for example, if you've got something that can be only played with paper, you don't even need paper. I think immediately of like, well, what things tend to work in paper? So drawing games tend to work, and things like word games tend to work. Because the immediate made me think of is that like it's a little bit like being in doing a game like over a stream with multiple players is a little bit like a DIY Jackbox game, right? Because actually those games themselves were based on pre-existing parlor games, which could be played with minimal requirements. So immediately I'm thinking, well, are parlor games going to be a good source to raid potentially? Word games. And then another one that makes me think of is another one that I would immediately be wanting to research is like drama exercises as well, because those again often zero components, and so all of those sort of things are quite nice places to go, whereas I wouldn't traditionally always necessarily go towards a board game, just because I'm thinking, well, you need more kit to do that. So because one of the first things I thought about was like a roll and write game, and I realized that most of those have like end up having really complex sheets that have some sort of like quite a lot going on in them, whereas I think what's really nice about your idea, for example, is that you could actually just draw the polyanimos, right? So 3 to 7 people could play them by the fact that you say, right, this is the next shape you have in your sequence. Once it's you can't undo, so that's great. That works with writing really well. And then that's really nice. So that's like crucially, it's like cool because it's an idea that can start with a blank page, pretty much. Helpful if you've got squared paper, I guess, and you're getting maybe drawing in the lines double thickness.
Yeah. And obviously, when it comes to, I actually didn't think outside of just board games, since obviously this is a part of the board gaming space, but I do, I've been in role-playing games and done role-playing games before, so theater exercises is something that I have made before. I think one of my favorite of those is like imagining that you're an orc at the bottom of a well, and you're going through his last thoughts as to how he ended up there, and together you're all going to figure out what happened to the orc. Why is he stuck? Why can't he get out before he finally dies?
Oh, that's really cool. That's a really cool idea. That's that's crazy, because that's the thing about RPGs like that. You can do something. It doesn't have to have tons of combat rules and how those things work. You're just doing a storytelling exercise, working back from an event. That's really cool. So that's another thing that one can do, right? So because I think that's within the rules, isn't it, Bez? You could do something like a storytelling element. It wouldn't have to wouldn't have to use the pen and paper if you didn't want to, presumably.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't have to use pen and paper. You could use if you're on stream, voice, or if you're in chats, typing. Story games, I mean, you could do an ortho game, which is a measure of success, but it could equally be a story game. That's totally fine, like something performative.
Yeah, completely. Well, that's interesting. Well, tell you what, I am really big on things that are obviously sound like pretty interesting and good to begin with. So could maybe, Dina, we could jump straight into your polyonymo idea and just take that a little bit further, because I think that sounds really good. See how far we take that, and then I don't know. I personally find I like to run with something, and then if we're not quite happy with it, we can always then just start a different route. But if we're into something that sounds pretty good, like I think then that's kind of interesting, right? So you've got this 9x9 grid. So helpfully, I've actually got the kind of my favorite design paper to work with is squared paper. So I've got a load of that here. So maybe I'm cheating a little bit, but I think this could actually be quite useful for drawing this. And I have terrible writing on green heat. Oh, excellent! Perfect. So, Dina, if you want to take the lead, do you want me to start by drawing a 9x9 grid, just as a?
Okay, let's do that.
Is 9x9 a specific number, or is it just because that would seem like about enough play space for what you had?
it was Bet's suggestion in the Discord that it would be feasible to expect people to do a 9x9 grid. So I was like, so I can't do a 10x10 or a 15x15. So I had to kind of go with the 9x9. And since I've been in real estate, for me, I was like, okay, 9x9, how many square meters is that? And then the idea was like, hey, that's kind of like the average flat in Europe. So you could actually do a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom flat layout on it. And then that kind of birthed the whole idea.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. All right. So, dear, I've completely ruined my 9x9 grid already. I'm going to divide this into 3s first. And then, okay,
9 is definitely a slightly harder number to draw compared to 8, for example. But honestly, when I wrote that, it was somewhat arbitrary. It was like, yeah, asking people to do 5. I mean, I've asked people to do that before, and people seemed fine with it for Michael's stream. And then
yeah, and we were playing on Michael's stream. It's like Second Chance, and that is a 9x9.
9 is definitely easier than 10, though. Because at least 9, you can divide it into thirds and then do each one of those into thirds, which is what I've done here. Check out my 9x9 grid. It's not the best 9x9 grid,
nice.
But it's a 9x9 grid.
So
it's functional. I know Alex is not talking. This was completely Aquasulus talking about I'm taking that totally out of context, because for those watching this after the fact, the full context is Alex was worried about complicated cheats in their own game. Nicholas saying, oh, but it's less complicated than it used to be. But yeah, I'm going to say, yeah, my 9x9 grid could have been a lot worse. You're 100% right, even though you were completely not talking about it.
So
and yes, you did team. No, I don't think you successfully tamed my grid at all. Sorry. Willfully misinterpreting people, James. Have you done your 9x9?
I've got my grid. So what I've done is to make it a little bit easier on myself, because I tried to do a smaller one first, and a slightly larger one.
I did a small one too.
And I've added, just in case this comes in handy, coordinates later. I've added numbers and letters because I love a good coordinate. And then I can fill in a little bit more easily, but still see where the lines are. That's kind of what I've gone with.
Maybe I'll color them in blue. So I've got some blue pencil right here, so it's accessible, literally.
So the next question, Dina, I have is it what thought have you given to what selection of polyominoes we would pick? Because presumably you've got to think very carefully if you want an exact set that 100% is achievable, completable. But there is also an element where you could create a game that somehow is more of like a statement of life, which is that all mess can never be completely removed. Entropy always goes up. And then as a result, it's actually not possible to create a perfect square at all in the game. And that it's just a question of how far from perfect you are, which I think actually says something quite interesting about life. So that would be my possible suggestion there. I don't know if that's worth thinking about in terms of, again, how one devises what the shapes are.
At first I was thinking about using some of the shapes from Blocus, because they're quite standard Tetris shapes. It also has the added C, which I really like, and the plus symbol as a Tetris tile. So I think those are fun because they are quite irregular and they can be very tricky to place in a 9x9 grid.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's a good plan.
Are you thinking that, so would reflection be allowed? Like if we've got a Z shape, are you also allowed to turn it into an S shape? You know, the Tetris Z and S shape.
Oh, so reflections and rotations, maybe both.
I mean, rotations got to be allowed, surely.
Yeah,
but are reflections allowed?
I think so.
You know, here's a crazy idea. No other game's done this, I don't think. But, okay, like, it just got me thinking, because that's like the transformation, okay? You've got the movement, you've got the reflection, you've got the rotation. What's about scaling? What if you had things and then you could scale them? So none of the shapes are going to be square. You can't just take a shape and use it for the entire square. But what if the shapes were strange little things and you can scale them? Would that be interesting?
Scaling of shapes. So That's interesting. Now, here's an interesting one immediately what I'm thinking about theme, because I really like Dina's theme about tidying up. And the only thing I would say in terms of thematic mechanic harmony would be that if you can scale the objects, then that makes you sound like you maybe have slightly Thanos-esque powers, where you can maybe
You're
go...
a wizard.
Well, exactly, or a wizard, something like that, where you can be like
the House of Gods.
I could make, but however, there's another way to interpret that, which could be that actually you can put things away in such a way that they take up more space, which is true, right? In terms of when you're packing away things. So that'd be another way to interpret that one. But whether or not it would be easier to understand the concept, because I think it's always really interesting to think in those terms, where it's like, because again, I was saying talk about this kind of simulationist kind of idea, where I always come from is like, well, for me, the reason why I love theme, and that's why I approach things that way, is because it's such a powerful explanatory tool, and even quite complex games can be rendered very simple because it's like everything makes sense according to all of your existing assumptions about how the world works. So as a result, it's like you're able to go, well, obviously this would do this and that would do that, and like it's like somehow the game has been mapped by your prior experience. So it would be kind of interesting to think about that aspect of it. Sorry, Dina, what were you? So I didn't. I was going off on one there. I didn't even get a chance to see what you designed.
I finished my 9x9. Yeah.
Excellent.
My big one.
Excellent.
Now I have
right.
a tiny on this side, a big on this side.
That's a much more impressive grid than mine. Fantastic.
Okay, so like Blocus, I think uses the full gamut of 4 square bits and 3 square bits and 5 square bits, I believe. Would we use a subset? Would it be? Are you thinking just going with the entire thing, and you can never pack all of this stuff away?
I would say, okay, let's take something from tidying up a bit. Whenever I'm tidying up, I get to a point where with some things I'm getting very frustrated with them, and then if they have any flexibility in them at all, I stuff them into a corner somewhere. So maybe could you in this game have a certain number of things which you often can't do at all as the definition of a polygon game, that you can't warp the shapes, but maybe some of the shapes you get maybe 2 or 3 crushes that you can use on a shape. So that you're allowed to slightly bend a shape in, because that's what you do with a pair of socks or something, or maybe of a certain category. So we could have different types of mess. So fabric type mess. So things like clothes maybe could be crunched, but maybe some other things can't be crunched, like a block of lead. I don't know. I'm not sure I have one of those just lying around in my house.
Tables,
or a dense block of rare earth metals. But a table, yeah, probably can't. Furniture can't really bend that. Oh, okay.
No, yeah.
Is that? Oh, so I've never actually seen it in. I've seen it on the shelf. I've never actually seen Blocus. Have a quick look. Right. I see, yeah, there's quite a. Is that? Oh, it's good. It's a little bit more than Tetris, isn't it? Because it has things like a little box with a bit poking out the side, which I don't think is a Tetris shape, is it?
So all the Tetris shapes, for those who are unaware, Tetris has every single possible tetronymo, which is a polyomino made of 4 squares, hence the name Tetris. But Blocus
has up to 5.
Right. Okay.
So we have some bonuses in this set.
Right. Yeah. I was wondering. Oh, of course, because they're all 4 in Tetris, aren't they? Yeah. Look at that. I never noticed that before. That's. There
we go.
Well, if I think about another game that has the game I think of when I think of this more than anything else is Patchwork, because that has an incredible variety of very weird and wonderful shapes in it, from little filler pieces which it has as this way of like giving you a bit of an out to really like strange different weird cross shapes that I think they're up to like maybe I think there can be 7 or 8 different squares, can't they? They can fill like very substantial numbers from memory. On Patchwork. So let me talk of research. Let me Google that, and then find
deep.
Quick research. Cue segue music or something.
That's exactly like I'm hacking in a movie hacking. That's generally what's the thing. So if I just take so for example, if we just go,
and I do wonder what if. I mean, you can go with the run with this theme because I don't want to break the mojo. like you've already got the no printed components bit, and so like that's already totally legit. Would it be possible to turn it into pies? What if the game was
In a
about
circle?
constructing a pie with scraps of pie? Like you have scraps of pastry, and then you need to patch together a pie using scraps of pastry.
Hmm.
So okay, so this is an interesting one. So pie, could you scratch something together? So I'm going to write these down again. So we've got convince someone you're a dinosaur, if I remember. Pie.
Yeah, let me get them up. So pie with a bonus for creamy leek and cheese pie.
Okay,
That's
right.
Two.
How much is the bonus worth?
Pardon?
How much is the bonus worth?
You get mentioned. I will say kudos. You get a special shout out.
We're playing games at multiple levels here. I mean, there's just the social game of the stream experience. Then there's like the game of making a game, and then there's the game we're making inside the game. It goes Inception like all the way down. So okay, so I'm gonna get good to know about the bonus.
Something nautical.
So I'm writing these down just because to fix them in my brain.
Convince people you're a dinosaur. Mime a turn. Sound of an animal. No printed components. I'll let James write that.
Okay. Mime a turn. Sound of an animal. Something nautical.
So say you're on a houseboat. Nautical.
Okay.
And
I like this. A houseboat is great.
Oh, I like that. Yes.
Fantastic.
Theme it around a houseboat. Brilliant.
Okay. So we have a houseboat.
Rob's already got creamy leek and cheese pie in their game, so you might as well just give up. Alternatively, you might say, well, they've got the creamy leek and cheese pie. Maybe you're cleaning up this houseboat, and you'd also need to clean up your larder as part of it. Maybe there's a creamy leek and cheese pie that you're cleaning up in the room.
So, but if we're going with the polyominoes, that they can be in any rotation. So we're looking around in our houseboat to find the bits that we need in order to make a pie. We should probably make it like an ice cream pie or something, because those are delicious. And we're going to deliver it by the end of the game. And it's a dinosaur party.
Is this this is challenging, isn't it? Because this is, again, I think that's really interesting again for me, is this like I want my brain is naturally leaning towards trying to make this a very coherently thematic game, which is challenging with all of those different elements. So I think it's going to be interesting to think how we go about doing that, if that is even desirable. So yes, I mean the pie. I think to me that the most natural thing that you would put that it feels like a pie leans into is obviously many different ingredients that would go into a pie. My parents run a houseboat hotel business, and they have lots of tidying up. Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that. Yeah, I mean, it's particularly because that's a good question. So what do people use the houseboats for? Presumably, is it just like a short break? People are relaxing and therefore not very bothered by tidying up. Maybe is that partly why?
It is very small space, so I suppose being tidy and remaining tidy is very difficult. Like I look at people who do the small house living, and I just feel like I would tidy all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think if we wanted to get the hidden traitor mechanic in, that could be challenging. But I do like the idea that maybe this is a houseboat in a world of dinosaurs. So, as in the dinosaurs some live on land, obviously, but some live on houseboats.
Dinosaurs who live in houseboats, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe the dinosaurs are if we put pies aside for a second, maybe if the dinosaurs are really into tidying, then you know that someone is not a dinosaur because they aren't tidy enough, or maybe the reverse. I don't know which one or how tidy dinosaurs were. I don't think we can know that from the geological record. So something like that means that you would know that someone was a dinosaur because they were very good at tidying up. So maybe that is the convincing element somehow, but it's more like you're trying to convince in general rather than convincing other players specifically.
So this game makes a hypothesis that dinosaurs are very good at tidying up. And so you need to be the best tidier in order to convince the Magnate, potentially, that you are the dinosaur.
Exactly. Maybe that. I mean, could be, right? Or alternatively, it could be that the dinosaurs are actually gathering different. If we want to go, maybe that's a bit less fun. They're gathering different. If they're gathering their ingredients for a pie, rather than it being about tidying, then maybe you can tell someone's a dinosaur by the kind of ingredients that go into their pie, which would in fact be things like we might be like, oh well, I will put in cherries or apples, whereas they might be, for example, it might be an
eucalyptus leaf.
Yes, or 30 possums. I don't know. Like that might be more the kind of ingredients they would expect. Yeah, I think Rob's correct about this. I don't think T-Rexes would be good at tidying somehow. I completely 100% agree with that. I think it's unlikely that they would be. I think they would struggle. I mean, look, we've done the dinosaur pose already earlier. I don't fancy my chances at tidying up this place constantly in dinosaur pose. Ergo, obviously not possible.
Totally.
Your logic is irrefutable.
Just pointing out the facts here.
Yeah, and for sure we're not T-Rex shaming. This is just, the way that things might have been.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just who they are. Like, I mean, there's no need to shame them.
For the sake of pushing ahead with an idea or wanting to, I mean, we've got this 9x9 grid. I've drawn a 9x9 grid. Are we going to think of should we try doing something? And it does occur to me, like, is this just a simpler, potentially less interesting version of the first episode of My City?
I don't think I know that. I don't think I know that first episode of My City. I don't think.
Yeah, just where you're fitting things into.
Oh, actually, I've seen pictures of this actually on Twitter. Oh, yeah, it looks quite attractive. But is it just a very simple polynomial game?
Well, it's legacy game, so it starts off super simple, and then I think second episode, okay, you've got some color bonus, and fourth episode, this new thing comes in, seventh, and every episode there's like a tiny rule, and every third episode there's a big change. But
so
I mean, we could give it a go, but like, is that going to be enough?
So I would say that the challenge here, I would say, is that just putting aside some of the theming questions for a second, would be the just enjoying Rob's comment, would be things like would be coming up with another lever or or something else that you're trying to balance. So I think to me, working really well over a stream, polynomial is great. It's a basic core thing to do because you can draw them. You can, once you're committed to something, it's kind of locked in. That makes me think a little bit about the legacy element, which we can park for aside for a second. But I think there's something in that which I really like. It's a known design space. But it feels like what you want to do is have something where there is some other kind of outcome that goes into it. So, for example, if you've got a stream of different polynomials, we've got one 9x9 grid, but could it actually be that you're trying to fill multiple grids? That could be one thing. Or is there some other thing that we're trying to achieve from the leftover polyominoes, or that some combination of those, for example, that affect something else in the game? And for me, that's what I would be thinking of next in terms of like trying to take it in a different direction to either say a Blocus or or that, for example, My City, or kind of classic polyomino games. So Patchwork has a very simple idea from memory that all the bits that you don't leave filled, you get minus points for. That's fine, but it's been done. And it would be good if we could try and work on something that was like a little bit different to that in terms of outputs.
I mean, maybe it's a houseboat sale. You're trying to get rid of your possessions. You're trying to sell them off. and you get money for stuff that you sell, but you're trying to tidy up.
So if we're going with that, then my first idea would be that you are decorating a bunch of houseboats and you have a lot of crap, meaning the polyominoes. You need to ship out as many houseboats as you can using the shapes that you have in order to make your business run.
Okay. So hang on, you're selling multiple. Sorry, you're selling multiple houseboats.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
So we have a bunch of shapes available, and we need to fill as many as we can. And when they're filled, then we can ship them out. That is also an interesting area.
So we need to fill a rectangular grid, and once the rectangular grid is completely full, then we can benefit from this property. So we are the houseboat mogul.
The houseboat mogul. Great. Sorry, I'm taking that right now. Dibs on that. That's the next big game. Naylor game. Houseboat mogul. Why not? Okay, cool. Obviously, we can sort out the publisher contract a little bit later on. But we'll just cut Bez out of it completely. So for Houseboat Mogul, which I think it should be the title for this. This is great. Once you've got a title, you're 50% of the way there.
Oh yeah.
For Houseboat Mogul, would it be really cool if like the different polyomino pieces were like different facilities in your houseboat?
Yes.
And so they're things like an ensuite bathroom or a billiards room or possibly a hot tub, those sort of things that you could have on your houseboat. And so maybe there's some way we can work out a scoring where some kind of combination of those things scores you more. So if you said the hygiene factor was that the houseboat has to be complete each time, then what you could do is borrow from Patchwork the idea of the individual one fill-in spaces where they somehow do lose you something having those items. But obviously it makes them easy to use. So you've got some kind of like trade-off between shipping out as many houseboats as possible and then using the fill-in pieces, which could just be bits of, I don't know, just bits of open floor. I don't know if you're like an oligarch who presumably wants to buy a houseboat, then generally it's a super yacht, but why not? Then I guess if you want that, then you need to have you want it full of lots of luxurious things you can show your friends. Like, oh look, this has a 2,000 bottle wine cellar in my houseboat, which is incredible because they actually has to be stored at the bottom of the boat because you can't obviously dig underground. So something like that. Would be something impressive. If it's like, look, I have a piece of floor, none of your billionaire friends with their houseboats are going to be very impressed by that, maybe.
Yeah. And then, like, obviously, you could get a bonus from getting the wine cellar and the wine tasting table in the same space, maybe.
Oh, right. So, okay. So what we've got going on here is a kind of set collection element that you can bring in potentially. So you've got you score more if your boat has the sets of things. You lose points for because that gives us like that's interesting. That gives us 2 axes, doesn't it? That then people have to negotiate spatially. So you've got the set collection element of like, do you have all of the wine tasting things on your houseboat? One. And then the other element is, does everything fit together? And then if it doesn't fit together, you're having to use all of these spacer pieces, which lose you points. So maybe something like that?
I mean, surely it should be a set like one of each type. Like, you want a fridge type thing. It's just that you've got a weird shaped fridge. And you want a nice rug or a nice armchair or whatever. And you want to have like all of these things on your houseboat, surely. One of each.
Well, that's an interesting one because obviously with set collection logic, you can have loads of different ways of doing that, right? So there are things where you have a certain exact amount of a thing, any less, any more is a problem. You have things where 3 things are the same, that gets you a set. Something where it's things of incremental value of some kind. So it might be that you want because you're right in terms of the theming. What would make sense for a houseboat would be that you would want a selection of different things. So you could actually have slightly different rules for different sets. So you could have the wine tasting sets. I really like this idea. The wine tasting set would be your wine cellar plus tasting table, plus maybe some sort of maybe a couple of like armchairs you could sit in and drink your wine. Right,
yeah.
and then you can talk about how it has how it has berry notes and overtones of asbestos. I don't know what you might say in your wine.
Walnut flavoring. And,
Walnut and asbestos, exactly. So something
blueberry.
exactly something like that could be something you could have. Whereas maybe another set would want to be defined along having something different. So you would want to have one of each of the different games, maybe. So that could be a billiards table, that could be your board game collection. Why not? Let's go meta, and then have a something else like, I don't know. Well, a collection of Nerf guns. Why not? I mean, what do billionaires get up to? I don't know.
I mean, Nerf guns on a houseboat sounds like fun.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the ammunition is getting lost constantly into the sea around it. But nonetheless, that's fine. That's yep.
It depends whether you're playing indoors or on the top deck, I guess.
Well, I'm imagining that this is in a nice warm climate, and that occasionally that there are you have your sliding doors open, so just shooting out even if you are playing indoors. That would be my assumption anyway. So all right, cool. So if we try and get down to maybe that idea, so we're talking about multiple grids. So would it make sense to have slightly smaller grids than 9x9 grids, just from a practical perspective, in terms of if we're going to have multiple ones? Like maybe start with what's the minimum number you can do for work polynomial game can work on?
3x3s?
3x3?
I think 2 by something.
Is it 2x4? I've seen 2x4s.
So the question I would ask then is, actually no, I should rephrase the question. What do we think the minimum interesting grid is? So one where there's like enough dimension of choice.
Surely there's going to be enough some possibilities in a 2x4, potentially.
Yeah.
Almost certainly. I'm just thinking about if we want to try to have a prototype that by the end of the next 49 minutes that we have, then that we could test. I think that'd be really cool if we could do that. So my gut says, and this is purely my gut says, that it's something like 5. Just because it has, you can presumably have things like you can have your multiple 4 by something polyominoes up to 4 length, and that fits in. Maybe because I think as the moment you're down to 4, the moment you have a polyomino of even just a 2x2, that's just a square in one corner that occupies 25% of the space.
Yeah.
So
I think the challenge, so just to catch up, so a quick hello to Timmy, and just to catch up anyone else who just popped in, we're thinking about a game where we've got houseboats, so it's something nautical. You're trying to put polyominoes or trying to put shapes onto these small houseboats. You've got multiple houseboats. You're trying to fit things into them and once you fill the houseboats, maybe get points, maybe make a set, I don't know. And then your houseboats mogul or houseboat tycoon, I don't know.
So so here's an interesting, just a practical thing, just immediately having a play with this. So I thought I would just start on a little 5x5 grid and have a go at this. Is that obviously when you're doing things in pen and paper, if you only have one color of ink, you have a problem in terms of like drawing out something. So kind of like, I love the idea of the wine tasting set for the houseboat, but it might be quite difficult to do that because you don't have many different ways that someone could draw at home and then easily distinguish between different things.
You could draw letters in there.
Yes, you could do letters. Letters is one approach. Yeah, so that would give us sort of 26, wouldn't it? Potential ones with 1 or 2. Letter combinations give you more, but it just starts to get a bit fiddly, I think.
Letter combinations is too much. Do you mean letters at all is too fiddly?
Well, what I would do in this situation, also because my brain always goes immediately to like product execution, is thinking about things like, are there certain things that are easy, are certain sets of symbols and letters that are really easy to distinguish? So, for example, like I wouldn't require a drawing game that had B's and 8s because they're too hard for people to both draw a B and an 8. So I would do something like, well, you could have dots and you could have slashes through things, hyphens, filled in spaces, A, C, like all the things that are differentiatable, and that would give you a kind of menu of possible options. Now, obviously, between those two things, you've then got a set of polyonymos that can each be in a different category, right? So that gives us a set collection element that's quite simple to execute in terms of even a quite small grid. So what do we think about? All right, Dina, what do you think about in terms of like the set collection logic and how that might interface?
I'm not sure how we're gonna do it for like playable in chat part, and be able to play it in like 45 minutes.
Well,
I'd
if there's a
love for it
lookup
to have a set
table, I
collection.
mean, you could roll dice, have a lookup table, say, okay, a 1 means this, 2 means, or you could have a weighted lookup table, 2d6, and then you've got 11 options. You know that the 7, 8s, and 6s are going to be rolled a bit more. Have a lookup table like that, although that might be terrible because you probably want a flat distribution, I think.
Probably. I think for this purpose, if we already go with the assumption that we're not going to be, well, we talked about earlier about it's not necessarily possible to create the perfect thing. What's quite nice about that from a design perspective is that we don't have to worry about like deciding. We can pretty much randomize the polyonymo shapes to begin with. Like we just create a whole random load of them, and then the other side of it would then just be coming up with what the different things are. So if we go with our houseboat theme, if we just commit to that, then what we could do right away is that maybe, Dina, if you want to do polyonymo shapes, maybe I could do houseboat themed things, or vice versa, and we could both work on that. I don't know what you think about that as a way of possibly doing that, and then we would at least have two kinds of thing, and then start trying to put them together.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a bunch of polyominoes.
Because that could be our menu of polyonymos, and then I'll just brainstorm some types, I guess, and then we can discuss them.
And
could we like?
Would we maybe have 6 different types, or how would you randomize them? Would the host pull them out of a bag or roll a die to select them, or?
I did think what would be really cool if you're playing with 3 to 7 players would actually be, and this maybe it wouldn't work at all, but would actually be to get to kind of crowdsource them. So you would get people to where each person gets to contribute a polyonymo, right? And so once you've had a certain set, maybe they get ticked off. So it's like once that shape's been done, no one else can then suggest that shape, or maybe they can't suggest that combination. So like I would say I'm creating and then this is nice from the point of view of like, again, minimizing the number of possible components, is you let people define a shape that's within the parameters of it. Can be a maximum of an L, it can be a maximum of let's say no more than 2 width and no more than 3, 4 length or something, then they can then just add that to they could just say that's the next shape, and then everyone tries to fit that shape onto their grid, maybe, and everyone gets a chance to invent one shape, and that's a way of more rapidly crowdsourcing it. I don't know.
So one person's going to do the shape that's best for them. Everyone else has to kind of just make it work.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll each get a shot to come up with the shape that would be like the perfect shape, which is quite cool, right? In the sense of we were talking before about with the polyonymo games being sometimes you want, like Patchwork has the little fill-ins. There are things where you can do something to kind of like go, I get to rotate, or we talk about reflection, for example, as like or making things smaller or larger as like a special power. Well, in this case, you don't have to have that concept, because instead each player just gets one shot to make the perfect shape for them. But they have to accommodate everyone else's shapes.
I mean, people doing that from chats is going to be problematic, but let's say, I mean, this was within possibilities of the game having like 3 people in camera, as we do right now. For example, if 3 people take turns, and then, but how would maybe chats get some sort of extra bonus to cope with that? We can work that out later. And
is it possible? Can you attach images in chats? No, you can't. Can you do that? Maybe not.
No, you can't.
Screen share or use like throw something on Instagram.
Like, that's asking a lot of people to draw it up and then take a photo and put it on social media just for the purpose of this game. So that would be fun. You need to be on Twitter to play this game, and you need to tweet out a picture every.
All right. Can we
follow us?
Can we make the assumption, Bez, that your audience is honest?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So if we do that, then maybe if we change the theming of I was just going to do symbols, but what if we bring a word game in element, then you would be able to type your response of what you got if your polyominoes were associated with letters. Right, so you'd be able to show maybe there's something where the polyominoes generate letters, and then you can say what letters you got, and then out of a result of those things. Now, obviously, you could partly make it up, but
Alex suggests, what if everyone on video has maybe people on video get to vote to a possible thing, and other people vote for them.
Yes, could do that. So
you're not allowed to vote for your own. Maybe would that be terrible?
Can you vote for a polyomino? So we each propose one, and then everyone votes on
polyomino creation and voting.
So
C is where it's at for sure.
So then there's the question that we vote for a polyomino, and then is it someone's responsibility to draw it and maintain a master board? Then would that be the idea? Potentially we have that, and then we're voting on which polyomino is used next on the board.
Or that the three of us are making the polyominoes, and the people in the chat is the one who's filling in the grid.
Right. Okay. So great. And then is there any way they can? I just don't think about this way. Is there any way they can show off their work at the end? That's the question, I guess. To Bez's point earlier about the.
I mean, at the end, people in chat don't, even though they might not get to show off their work right then and there. Obviously, people are always welcome to do it in the Discord or something. But I like the way that obviously Losapalooza's done a lot of polyomino games where you don't need to show it off as long as you understand the scoring. Okay, we trust you. Have you scored 33 or 20? Just tell us.
Okay, all right. So then that let's just go back to having. Okay, so we'll talk about the voting then, how that would work. So we would each draw a shape. Then they would be voting in the chat where you'd vote for whose shape you would go with, and then everyone has to then draw out that shape on their grid. And you have to go with whatever the democratic choice of shape is.
Yeah.
Right. So then, can we still have a scoring? Do we still need the scoring element? That's the question of the additional set collection element, or can we actually do something a bit simpler without that and still be interesting?
Then we would just skip that and then have it scoring based on how many spaces you have left or how many you managed to fill in the houseboats grid.
So like lower number is better. 1 point minus 1 point for each. 1 point for each empty space. Lower number is better.
Yeah.
Is that maybe we could try that? That's quite interesting in terms of like influencing people's design choices, isn't it? I think what will be quite interesting about that straight away will be like presumably the most popular shapes will be the easiest shapes to use, potentially. So we would need to consider how that works, maybe, because I'm guessing if every time I just go, if I just draw this, for example, like presumably that would get voted on as being the most useful shape.
I'm going to vote for something that I can fit, but I don't think other people can fit. Alex does ask, what if there's only one host, and suggests an alternative method. And I did say in the rules that if you believe that the game only works with 2 or 3 people in the stream, that's fine. The key thing is that you need to be able to allow other people to play as well without necessarily needing stuff.
The chat's votes for one to deny the hosts. Interesting. So that's interesting. So if would it be then a team element? Is it everyone playing their own polyominoes at home, or is there is it that we each are on a team? Each one of us represents a team, and we because we did that previously quite successfully with some of the word games on the stream. So if we did something like that, where there's voting for that, and then you're all commonly voting on which polyonymo gets made. So we're constantly proposing polyonymos and then trying to lay them out. And that means maybe, I mean, it sounds incredibly stressful because I'm probably pretty bad at polyonymo games. So I'm going to be there drawing things and people are chat going, no, James, don't put it there. Don't put it there. But that could potentially work quite well in a way that would let everyone contribute, right? Because then, because to Bez's point about you want to vote for polyonymos that are good for you but bad for others, because each one of our grids is going to be distinct, presumably, means that the voting gets a bit more meaningful because it's a bit like what will be good and bad. And maybe 3 is a probably rough minimum for that to work of 3 teams. So each of us is a team with a grid. Do we think we could try that? So
is that removing agency from chats if it's just okay, be on the team and vote
yeah,
for
we want them
things
to
that
participate.
What?
More.
I guess they are participating because they can also be shouting at us in the chat, right? So they.
So if we were going with the team and the mogul theme, so everyone who's on my team or James' team, they are part of the ones who are shipping the houseboaters out. So if James' team with the shapes that they are all individually making, they're all trying to get one houseboat ready.
Yeah.
So at the end, we would then count how many houseboats did each and every one of our team made to ship out, and then we compare, and then one of our hosts would actually be the winner based on the chat's participation.
So so each team is okay. So hang on a second. So I'm not sure I understand that. Just make sure I understand that. Each team is everyone on each team is drawing out their polyonymo grids
Individually,
and then we're also doing them, and so we're just proposing shapes, and then everyone is then voting on the shapes. We're each taking turns to propose a shape and draw it and put it on the screen.
I would think of it like kind of like how you do a sales team. That we are trying to encourage our team to complete as many orders as possible.
Yes.
But also that we can also work alongside them because that boosts the morale. So we would also fill and then we would suggest that is what we think would be the best for our team.
Right. Okay. So based on what we're doing on our own personal grids, because we're also making grids, right, as well as making polyominoes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Would that be too much?
No, I don't think so. I just think it's one of these ones we just need to let's.
Because then, yeah, we would each have kind of like, so everyone gets to vote on what shape we're gonna do, based on what the ones in the chat have as well, and then we'd see how many houseboat orders we are all completing.
Okay, so we would need to have, and a houseboat order is, well, presumably, we're very difficult for anyone to get exactly all the shapes to line up. So it would be the same scoring system, but for everyone individually, and then it would be the whole collective team's lowest score.
Yes.
So okay, that's interesting. So let's say 5 people competing on each team, just for argument's sake. Then the whole combination of all of those would be like the lowest score. So like a score of 5 would be amazing because it would be 1 space missing from all 5. But it does mean that if you've got one person who's behind, then obviously they could cost you quite a bit. That's really interesting. Okay, all right. So if I just do a grid.
So did we agree on what sort of grid is a houseboat?
I honestly think 5x5 would probably be enough because I think it will give it enough to do that. And I completely agree.
So is there only one houseboat per person?
Well, I think the idea is we're doing multiple houseboats, and I think Dina and I, for example, maybe actually Bez could have a team as well, would be playing along the basis of would be playing on the basis that our scores just count the same as everyone else's scores, but we do the additional thing of proposing polyonymous.
I mean, I like the voting thing. It's definitely. I do agree with Alex that if it's houseboats, it should be narrow. Like, it should be 3x5, maybe, if you want the smallest thing.
I think what we should do though is, can we suggest that's a refinement, because we're already at 1 hour 29. If we want to get this tested and played, we want to maybe come up with the very first V1, run it through something, and then see if we can make it work. So let's just think about, so the grids, that's the easy bit, I think, around the placing the polyonymos. Simple scoring, you get -1, or it's 1 point for each thing left unfilled. We draw each time a polyonymo. I will have one piece of sheet which I will have the secret grid on, because I think the grid should be secret, shouldn't it? Because our grids should be secret from each other as well. And then one grid, and then one sheet of paper where I'm drawing proposed polyonymos that I can then show off. And then the chat all votes, and then everyone has to draw whatever the voted one is. That's it, right? Just to make sure I understood it. Cool. All right. So
and then you do one houseboat at a time, and when you've finished a houseboat, or as much as you want, maybe that's when you sell it and you score it 4 points, and it's just scores according to how full it is, or
well, I was thinking presumably it means that everyone will be drawing out the same polyonymos in the same order. So everyone will be either realizing that they can't complete, or that they are completing it, or how far they are away from having 100% at the same time. And I think the idea of the multiple houseboats, if we go back to Dina, what you suggested there, was that each of the houseboats would be like each one of us is building a houseboat for our company, or selling a houseboat for our company, right? So the idea is that it's just the combination. So we could play multiple rounds, but a round would just be, and effectively a round could also be the same thing as a game, would just be the one grid with the voting system. We'll see how that works, and if that works, and depending, we can then start adding more things to it. What do we think?
Okay, let's start.
Okay, great.
So what restrictions do we have for? I mean, how are you feeling about this, Dina?
I think this sounds really fun.
Okay, so what restrictions do we have for what we can propose? You mentioned 3x4, kind of, it can't be out with that grid. Maybe it has to be a finite number of pieces. So maybe a maximum of
5.
5?
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, so 5, as in 5 squares is your maximum.
Yeah, 5 squares in a.
Yeah.
And
so
no more than 4 high, was it? Yeah.
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 So it can't just be 5 in a row. That's basically the only thing you can't do.
Yeah, because I think this is really important, isn't it, to make sure you create relatively awkward shapes. So 5 squares, no more than 4 length. And now here's an interesting one. If it has to be 5, that will create lots of awkward shapes, won't it? Which is maybe
it will.
Okay, I've drawn something.
Okay.
So it has to be 5, and it no more than 4 length. Is that fine?
Yep.
Okay, great.
I've drawn something.
Okay, right. I need to just draw one and see if this works.
I'm just gonna use some of the Blocus ones then.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I have that.
Has to be 5, 4 length. Wow, these are going to get real awkward real fast. This is the spirit of making a game up. It's great. Okay, here we go. So this is. Hang on. Before we start, do we have to do teams?
Oh yeah. Who wants to be on my team?
I mean, I wasn't sure if we were. What does it mean to be on someone's team?
What it does in lots of situations in life is a sort of like a fairly arbitrary tribal allegiance. I feel like that's probably all that we really want here. Because then we can do the collective scoring thing, which I think is really cool. I've not seen anything like that in a polymer game before. So if we
Yeah.
had, so is there a way to do that in the chat somehow that we can work out who the people in the team are when we do these?
Yeah, people just type in James, Dina, and maybe should we keep it as 2 teams, because I don't know if there's that many people necessarily wanting to jump in.
Yeah.
If you team up with Bez, you get Bez points. That's the incentive.
Absolutely. Completely correct. Factually correct. Yes. Okay, cool.
If you team up with James 1,000 times, you get a free copy of Magnate.
That's not true. But no, potentially. No, sorry, I can't do that.
1,000 times is a lot, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we do the?
You wouldn't give someone a free copy of Magnate for teaming up with you 1,000 times.
Yeah, that's well. Hang on, team up 1,000 times per copy. Oh,
yeah.
Done. 1,000 games of this are cheap at the price. Yeah, absolutely. You can have a free copy for that. 100%. So we'll just get everyone in the chat just indicates who's. So we start with just 2 teams. Let's just do myself and Dina, and then just see, and then hopefully roughly equal proportion. Let the chat sort that out of saying where each person can say which team they're on, who wants to play.
Okay, so sounds like it's just J or D.
Yes.
Oh, I just realized JD.
Yeah.
JD.
The DJ.
Exactly.
JD. This is who you T people be. We are going to switch around until this song and teams are
I'm not gonna look.
Okay,
so let's do this. So who's on which teams? Come on, people. Which team are you on?
This is a thing, like, it needs to work even if it's just the 3 of us. It needs to work for 3 people, James.
Yeah.
Well, it can still work. It can still work on that because we'll still end up with points, won't we? Because we're playing the game as well.
Okay, so let's say it's
particularly if you. Okay, all right. So okay, all right. So I'm going to propose this shape.
Wait a minute. My shape is the same.
We've gone with the same. So actually, only a meaningful vote, right? So who's voting? Come on, votes. Let's have some votes.
So are you allowed to vote for? Presumably, you're not allowed to vote for yourself.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to vote for myself, but that's very useful in this one because I'm going to vote for Bears.
Okay, so on the count of 3, and it should be obvious which we are voting. 3,
because we can
1.
point to the right person. Yeah. Go. Right, so that's Bez's shape then, right?
Okay, yay! Do I get a point or anything for proposing the winning shape?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe we can add that. We can upgrade that as a feature later on. Okay.
I get a vote point. I don't know if vote points are actually points, but I'm giving myself a little V.
Okay, let me just see this. So, all right. So,
B, D, G.
Okay. Right,
wait a minute. Do they need to be exactly 5 long? Is that what we decided?
I think we said exactly 5, and we'll see what chaos ensues as a result.
Okay.
Okay, I have my next shape.
Okay, I've got my next shape.
Okay.
It's this one. Oh, you've gone for the same shape. Wait a minute, you're not allowed to reflect them. Is that what we've decided? You're not allowed to reflect them normally.
Yes, let's say that. Let's say that we said that. No reflections.
Because saying there are no reflections is going to make it harder for people slightly. If you want to make it more accessible, I think you should allow reflections counterintuitively.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, all right. I just think it just adds to the. I mean, I'm quite comfortable with people's grids being all over the place at the end. So I just think it adds to the general mayhem.
Easy. I'm talking about accessibility in terms of Wait a minute. Is this rotating or reflecting?
That is a good point. It's harder to see whether or not it's rotated. So actually, well, in which case, then it doesn't matter. I don't think we said there's a rule against this. So I'm going to propose the same shape again.
Okay. I'm proposing a square with 1 bit coming out, and Dina's proposing a zigzag. Oh no, wait, a snaky shape.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Okay, I will go with.
We're going to do the voting again with a simultaneous reveal.
Yes.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Oh, it's Bet again.
Oh, it says I'm getting another voting point. I don't know if they're worth anything, but we'll decide at the end.
We can work out.
So just to be clear,
what rate they
closest
convert
shape
to
was
normal
this,
points.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Then, and we're not rotating. We are rotating.
I think we are rotating and reflecting for accessibility.
And that's totally fair. You don't actually need to play in chats if you're just lurking. Still lots of love and appreciate you being here. And Dina, maybe don't look for just a second. And I'm going to show chat what...
Oh, am I looking away?
Yes, look away for just a sec.
Yes.
And I'm going to show chat what I've got so far. So each time, remember, you're drawing one of the things, and that is what I've got. Just to keep... Okay, I've brought it back.
Are we all showing our own teams, the chat? What we've got?
Do you want to?
Yeah, go on. This is what I've got so far.
Okay.
So I will show next. If
Wait a minute.
Blindfold.
Okay.
Okay, so I think this is what I've got. There you go. Hope the chat's seen that.
Okay. And I'll turn away to let Dina show.
Okay, I'll do it then.
You sure?
All done.
Okay.
Done. You can come out now.
It's all good.
I've apologies to everyone on my team. I already screwed this one up.
Okay, so next shape. I'm just going to draw on a blank bit of thing. What do I...
Okay, I've chosen the shape.
Okay.
I just want to draw it a little bit nicer. Okay. I've got it behind my hand. 3, 2, 1. Ooh. Okay. Okay.
Where's your reveal? 3, 2, 1. Oh. Whoop. Whoop.
Okay, so Dina gets 2 votes. So Dina gets a voting point.
Woohoo! Do like V.1 and my shape.
Yes. Mm.
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna use orange.
I'm good. Okay, I've drawn what shape I want next.
Oh dear, I've really screwed this up. Oh well.
Okay.
It does occur to me that with 5 shapes of 5 pieces and 5 by 5, it's possible to fill it, which goes slightly against what we wanted originally. It does occur to me that, yeah, for next time we try it, it might be worth doing something that's not a multiple of the shape size that we're making.
I agree. That makes a lot of sense. I also think that maybe having some variety, maybe between 3 and 5 or something like that, could be good, because the problem is that everyone's scores are likely to align. I've realised, because there's like you'll often be exactly 5 short. So maybe that would be an effect. But the great thing is we're testing this so quickly, we can rapidly iterate and deploy another version of the game, which is great.
Yeah.
So okay, here's what I've got ready to reveal.
Okay.
Oh, what a funk! You're going seriously funky on this one. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Ooh.
I'm revealing that's mine. There's what's yours.
3,
Oh, yours is that one. So 3,
2, 1.
Oh, we've got a each way tie. What do we do in that situation?
No, there's not a one each way. Dina voted for me.
Oh, okay. Oh,
And
okay.
he voted
Sorry.
for me. So I get another voting point.
That's great.
Okay.
Okay, and
I am out.
what do you mean you're out?
I
I
can't
got
finish.
myself in a corner.
I can't finish.
Okay.
So I will show what I got. So it's a bit hard to see because I misdrew a bit of it if I do this here.
Okay.
So there's a 2 and a 3 that's missing. Exactly. And that is actually a little bit similar to, I think, Dina, is that, have we got exactly the same?
I don't feel like you should be allowed to show at this point, because you are going to, if I show a thing, I mean, previously you would show a thing and Dina, okay, so let's say Dina, you draw a thing, James might think, okay, I might vote for Bez or I might vote for Dina, and it would be fairly arbitrary. But now, whatever things that you show, James knows that that's not good for me.
So I agree, but actually the game is over because it's not possible for there to be, I can no longer incorporate any more shapes into my grid.
If the game is, I don't feel like the game should have been over. I felt like the game should have been over when no one can put anything in.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're
So
gonna
can
give
you?
Bez a shape.
Okay. All right. Okay. Fair enough. Sorry, I thought that you'd effectively. I thought effectively in the situation it looks like you've won by default because.
Unless, I had it so that there was
there
one
you go. You
possibility.
see. There you go. So you've actually got it, done it, and completed it basically. Because the next one would have been that, and then either. Oh, I see. So it could have been we could have had one more round where either one more turn rather perhaps where either you really wanted us to vote for your shape. The problem is because both of us were out, we would have gone.
I've got a new scoring system. I've got a new scoring system. Okay, you score based on how many blocks of empty you have. Fewer is better.
I think that is the scoring, right? That we suggested.
That is the scoring.
Because I think we've both got 5. So and you've got 0.
No, I've got 5 as well because we didn't place the last shape.
Oh, okay, yeah, but that's just because
I'm saying blocks of empty, not just squares of empty, but areas of empty.
Oh, I just assumed that if it became impossible, if hang on, sorry, if it became impossible to finish, you're kind of out anyway. You've lost effectively. That's why I thought, because that's why I looked at it that way. We didn't agree completely how the win condition would end. So sorry,
understood completely differently.
Can you explain the Can you explain your scoring idea again, just so I understand that in terms of area?
So my scoring idea is that I score 1 point.
Yes.
Lower is better. So because I've got 1 area that is empty, I think you had 2 areas that are empty,
right? Gotcha.
And you would score 2, and 2 is in this game worse than 1 because you want a big, spacious area. You want a bigger area.
Like area control. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So number of areas. Okay. All right. So should we run that again? And this time where we have a little more variety in the length and the sizes. So we try 3 to 5.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, like it's fairly quick to do. Alex suggests a couple of questions. Maybe you're not allowed to use your own shape. That feels. How would that work? Because does that mean that if your shape is voted for the best shape, everyone uses it except for you? That means that you're always going to make the most awkward shape, isn't it?
Yeah, it would make it more difficult, I suppose. So, like, you would have to use the shape of who you voted for, even if you're the winning one.
Yeah, so like if you're the winner, so everyone in that hypothetical game is just incentivized to make the hardest possible thing.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
that would be as fun, maybe.
because it doesn't feel like you've got that asymmetry of desires. It's not like each turn, like in this game, I was thinking, okay, what can work for here and what can help me to fit it. Are we sticking with 5 by 5 for now? Unless you want the voting points. Yeah, maybe like voting points deduct your thing, in which case I got voted 3 times. Maybe I score 1 minus 3 is -2, and Dina scores 2 minus 1 is 1, and James loses with 2 points. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that could
Okay,
completely
yeah.
work. I think I'm happy to give that a go. I think we should try that. But I do think varying up the shapes will add a little bit more interest to it, I think.
Okay, let's try it. So it's a 5 by 5 grid. So the scoring is, and these are all penalty points. Lower is better.
Yeah.
So scoring is number
of areas left over.
All you could have number of times voted minus the number of shapes that you've got at the end.
Yes.
Empty. Yeah, so positive is better.
Yeah.
Voting points.
V minus AS.
So hang on, this is positive is better because you lose. Oh, you lose. Yes, you lose points for areas left over, and you gain them for winning votes. Yep.
Yeah. So it's votes minus areas. That is the scoring.
Yep.
And so you're allowed to do a shape of any size, whether it's 3, 4, or 5.
Yes.
Okay.
3, 4, or 5 in total. Okay.
Oops. I'm going to have a quick Okay. I've drawn my shape. Have you drawn your shape or got your shape?
I have drawn my shape.
Okay.
Got it. 1.
Here it is.
2.
Okay.
Okay. So this is. We're going to vote.
Yes.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, so James gets a point.
Yes.
And that was a 2 by 1 or 3 by 1?
3 by 1. It has to be 3 or more, but James has to use one of ours.
Oh, is that? Oh, sorry. Are we applying that rule?
Yes.
So I have to use one of you, any of yours. You have to use mine. I have to use one of yours.
Yes.
Right. So okay, I think I know which one I'm using then. Fine. Yep.
I mean, it's clearly going to be the 4 by 1, and at this point, I think to myself, "Hey, why did I?"
Okay. This is interesting. Let's see how this goes. So this is good.
Okay.
Okay.
This is, there's definitely, because that's what it says. It's kind of the tension between wanting to make it difficult because, at least one person will have to use, not their own, but easy so that other people are going to vote for you. But if at least 2 people are making it easy, the third person is incentivized to make, it easy as well. There's definitely lots of social kinds of pondering.
There's lots of. Let's see how this is going down. Okay, so this is my suggestion.
My suggestion is a 2 by 2.
Okay, ready to vote? 3, 2, 1.
Yes. Really?
That's fine.
You're voting for James.
Yeah,
You're giving James another point. Seriously.
I am.
Okay.
It's a good shape. All right.
How was it not? How was mine not better? Mine was just a straight 2x2. Disappointed. So James, you get
I like
to
little
use
fidgets.
any shape except for your own.
Okay.
Now I would want to use.
Okay.
Okay, so
What does
Are you
Beth
ready?
have?
3, 2, 1. James and I have swapped.
Okay.
Okay, let me ponder for 1 wee second. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Yes, finally got to vote.
but I can, yes, okay, interesting. Yes. Right. So
And I have to use Dina's or James's.
It's all pretty.
Are we going to say that you can't have the same shape as just one? Or do we not need any rule like that? Or you can't propose the same shape twice in a row, or you can't propose
Yeah.
the previous winning piece?
I think maybe not twice in a row, but would be, as in you can't propose the same shape you propose twice in a row. But I think there's something quite fun about proposing other people's shapes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Let's do that. You can never propose the same shape twice in a row, but you can do it later on in the game.
And actually, yeah, exactly.
Okay, I am ready.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Okay.
Whoop. It decided to. Let's see. What does James have?
Oh, sorry.
There. Okay.
Giving James another point. I should start voting for Dina just because James has so many points. So James has 3 points.
Oof.
I've got 1.
Okay.
Dina still has none.
Yeah. I think I'm choosing 2 weight shapes for you guys.
Yeah, it's definitely the case that it pushes towards, for me, easy shapes, because I think it's because it's like the weirder ones are like, well, it's answer is quite interesting actually, because the balance of, as you're saying, Bez, about the to what extent do you want to go for easy things or hard things is quite interesting, because of course it does help everyone to keep proposing easy shapes, but on the other hand it does mean it wins you points for that. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I've been really interested to see what the final scores are like. Okay, so
Okay. James's. Okay, I've got a wee corner. You can't see it, but it's a 3-piece corner. A plus. Oh, Dina and I went for the same thing. Interesting. Are you ready to vote, James? I'm ready to vote.
yes.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Yay, we gave Dina a point, finally. Okay.
I wonder what you lot have.
Now, I've got some fairly solid ideas for why this is terrible, but we'll discuss it at the end. It feels like something that could be not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my one is the 3 in a line.
Okay.
But this is really hard, Dina. I want to vote for you, but it's like...
Are we ready to vote?
Yeah, I guess we have to. Okay, so it's finally happened. Everyone's got one vote.
Yeah.
Now what happens?
Oh,
So
I don't know.
Maybe no one gets to draw anything, and everyone has to do another shape that's different to their previous shape.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I think that makes sense.
Can it be? The question is, can it be a shape that someone else just proposed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just the same as a normal round.
That is right.
Mm-hmm. 3, 2, 1. Going with the corner. You're going with the L shape.
Mm.
Dina's going with the 3 in a line.
Yep.
Okay.
And Bez, what's yours one again? Is that a
3 corner?
That's the 3 corner. Okay.
This one.
Okay.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, vote. So Dina voted for me. I voted for Dina. James voted for Dina. So Dina gets a point.
So Dina, yours was a straight 3 in a line, wasn't it?
Yep. That's the one.
And Dina has to do someone else's.
Yep. I'm gonna do this one. Here. Not quite sure where that piece went.
Okay, I'm going to draw something
It's
tiny.
2 o'clock.
Oh, whoops. Okay.
So this is where it gets interesting because, yeah.
Actually, no. I'm going to do...
How many spaces do people have left?
Okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm not showing it yet. Okay, it's this one. 3 in a line.
Yeah. 3 in a line. Have we all done 3 in a line?
Okay, so, well, I know who I'm voting for.
Okay.
Just for the record, James has 3 points, Dina has 2, and I have 1. Just saying that. 3, 2, 1, vote. Oops, it was meant to be Dina. Yay, I got my second point. But sadly, I cannot fit in 3 in a line because my final grid was like this.
Oh no!
So I get my final score is 2 minus 1 because I've got 1 area, so I've got 1 point.
So I believe I have 1 area in the middle which is unfilled, which is a little 2 gap here. So I think that's -1, I think, for me as well.
Which is 2 points.
And that happened to me on the previous turn.
And I had 2 unfilled ones.
But it's 1 area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
so that's 1 point.
-1 plus 2, no point.
So all of us had just 1 unfilled area. And so all of us managed to do it reasonably well. And we all ended up with it basically came down to the votes.
Yeah, exactly. It came because it was my score 2 at the end.
Yeah, so it was, in terms of voting, it was 2-3-2. In terms of final score, it was 1-2-1.
Yeah.
How is that feeling to you two?
I think there's the germ of something there. I like that. I think that there's it's not like something I've ever encountered before. It feels like it definitely could do with a lot of tweaking and development. So things like around the size of the grids. I think obviously we didn't end up talking much about the theme element of it, which should be quite fun to spend time on. But I actually think there's something there that you could play that's quite easy to play. Which I thought was quite interesting, and there felt like I felt like I was genuinely weighing up often, like, well, hang on, do I want this? Is this going to be really useful, but also it will get me a vote? So, like, I was genuinely weighing that up and thinking about tactically what would make sense at each point to draw, and about like thinking weirdly, like, I don't want to draw something that's useful for me because obviously if I can't use my own thing anyway, so that was kind of interesting from that perspective. So I thought there was something there.
Yeah, you literally never use whatever you drew. That's true.
Yeah. Which is interesting because it becomes purely about what will be popular, but of course popular will generally be also too easy for other people to use. And I think the difficult thing is it would be really tactical if there was some way you had some way of peering into other people's boards.
I wonder if it should be, I mean, given the way that the game progresses, because it feels like you're always wanting to make it as easy as possible, right? It felt like it was tending towards that with 3 players. And with more players on the video, I think it would tend even more towards that. Because as soon as 2 people are going, okay, let's just do the 3 shapes and nothing else, I think everyone would be like, yeah, you know what? Those people are getting all the votes. We need to do this in order to just be able to catch up. And
exactly.
At that point, I wonder if we should bring back the rule that it has to be exactly 5 squares.
So you could do. I would say, to be honest, the thing I felt like it would benefit from would be that if everyone could see each other's boards. So obviously, I know that doesn't quite fit in terms of the chat challenge, but if I was just using it as a springboard to make another game, I think I would be tempted to do that because then I would be able to look at everyone's board and be like, right, what should I draw that will most likely win me the vote, but also benefit the fewest people? Which would then be like a more interesting, and I think it would push me into proposing weirder shapes because we'd all be trying to come up with shapes that were not that great for each other, but like good enough to win a vote. Whereas at the moment, to be honest, I can't possibly even begin to visualize what your boards might look like. So I've got no way to so I'm going to choose very crowd pleaser options rather than like more carefully calculated options. That would be my next suggested iteration of it if we were taking it further.
Yeah. I think also the variation from like 5 to 3 cubes was a little bit too much for this. A bit like chaotic, and then you'd end up doing smaller shapes instead of the larger ones. So do you think it's one of the things I like about like Second Chance is that you have to do larger shapes in between, that they will pop up. So only doing like small shapes is kind of like, you can always fit them.
Yeah.
In a way.
I wonder if it's something that's like a sweet spot because it felt to me like the game was a bit more interesting with where I could feel like I could
carry on. I need to run for literally 2 minutes.
No worries. I felt like it was slightly more interesting when you could do some 4s. But I do agree that the 3s are a bit easy, aren't they? Because they're all going to fill things very readily, and actually it's probably better if everyone's. Also, just a slightly larger grid. I think something like obviously your original 9 grid would probably be like optimal or like a 7 or something like that. But I think it was good to test this because then what we did was I felt like we completed the objective, which was to make a game that you could play on the stream, which is really cool. So within 2 hours to have gone from chatting to that, pretty
nothing to
Right. Well, I mean, you'd already had a really good idea, but it was just a question of then transforming that and and taking it forward.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't do any dinosaurs, but
yeah, I think that's the problem is that how we're working well, and specifically not just dinosaurs, but convincing someone you're a dinosaur. Right. That's the really challenging bit. So I think we'd need to work out how to do that one. But, I take those more as suggestions, I guess, than limitations on format.
Yeah. I think we did good. Yeah, definitely the larger shapes, the 5s and 4s I particularly like.
Yeah, completely. And actually, to Alex's point, I've just seen in the chat that you can't repeat shapes. That maybe that's another adaptation you could make to it to make it a bit more fiendish and end up with like more areas. Because it seemed like it was quite interesting how we all clustered towards there was one unfree space at the end, rather than like 2. Because I'm guessing that's another property of it was easy enough, and that was partly caused by it.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I mean, I meant
like,
area,
like
not
areas.
spaces. Because I think did we all end up with exactly 2 unfinished spaces? 3. Okay, so we were all quite close. So with one area each. So yeah.
I was hoping that someone would propose the corner so I could get it in.
Yeah, would have been ideal.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think with a bit more size of thing and being able to see each other's boards, I think there would be something a bit interesting there that I think would be quite tactical.
I mean, it could be that, you know, maybe it's weighted too much towards the votes. I mean, maybe you get 2 points for every area. I don't know. That's empty.
Yeah, I mean, all of these things you could try, right? They would all be things that you could modify, and they're like all. The great thing is that what I like about this kind of thing is that you've immediately got multiple levers to explore that are kind of quite clearly obvious as to what directions they would probably push in that you could then try. Which would make it really rapid to iterate it, which would be good.
Is there something that you want to immediately try out now? Do you want to try a different shape, or do you want to bring it to a close?
I've got to dash off for my lunch quite shortly, actually. So
I got to pick up a kid.
Oh, there you go. So probably not today, unfortunately. But there's certainly one that I'm going to be thinking about. And I just thought while you were away, just saying to Dina how bloody cool it is that we've gone from having some ideas at the beginning, and then and once we've really got going, maybe only about 25 minutes in, and then less than an hour and 45 minutes later, we've got a game we've tested, and we're iterating on a game already, right? We're no longer just like trying to. We've already moved into that stage, which I think is really cool.
Obviously, I would like to go back to the whole set collection idea and make this more advanced. I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, because that third axis of scoring could be really fun. I think that could be really cool. I think that you're right. That would add a lot to it. Yeah.
And at this point, it seems like both of you are quite keen to continue this. Is that correct? Kind of work on it and get something a wee bit different, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, I would be up for continuing to have a little bit of a play with it. Certainly discuss it.
What do you think the working title of this game should be?
Oh wow!
Houseboat Logos is
Houseboat Mogul.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Mogul has to be Houseboat Mogul.
Yeah.
So I think it has to be 100%. Dina, you're absolutely correct.
No doubt. We need to have some really cool, you can put the grid and then have like a boat around it and some decorations and illustrations. So it would be really sweet.
Delightful. I just also noticed a comment about that, the idea of having shaded and unshaded shapes. I think that's exactly the kind of direction that would be really cool to take it in, would be this thing where they have additional properties that go beyond exactly what Dina's saying. The set collection element that goes a bit beyond those elements to have additional layer of scoring. I think within that, plus the slightly larger grid, slightly changes to some of the system around being able to see. I think being able to see each other's boards would be really cool, because I think it's I think about how.
I think it's important just for the world we live in to make it something that people can play along in chats and have. Although it does occur to me that this whole game, it's rubbish for chat because people can't. I just realised the voting that we were so excited to try, it takes it away from a game that people can actually join in on. That's quite sad.
So I think for the let's take the I think the world we're in right now. I mean, I think to be fair, the only thing I would say is that I've seen some pretty big Zoom calls with lots of people on. And actually, so it technically went a bit outside the borders of the specific game jam challenge rules. But I think actually in terms of, an ability of a game that lots of people could play all online together, because it's just drawing and then showing off something on your screen, you can actually have everyone just hold up in front of the camera. So I think it's quite well suited for the times we're in general. But you're right. Yes, we did bend that rule quite substantially when it came to the actual challenge today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was, just so excited by it. I didn't pause to think.
Yeah, we just all went with it.
Well, I think, and that's the purpose, right? Is it's the creative constraint that pushes you in a direction. Because I think
And
this is
for
like,
sure, like, it's not like I've said at the start, there are no prizes for this game jam. It's not like, okay, you fulfilled the most criteria and you got the creamy leek and cheese bonus points. So
and Bez points,
congratulations.
crucially, right? You get
And
the
Bez
creamy
points.
leek. You get the creamy
Yeah.
leek bonus plus an X number of Bez points equal to your current power level or whatever it is. That's
as a very non-arbitrary and very definite, prearranged, very well calculated. This has been playtested millions of times.
Completely,
Absolutely, 100%. I'm being
100%.
sarcastic.
Yeah,
but it's cool though, because like, even though I haven't done a whole game by myself, I still got invited for this because I keep telling everyone I am a game designer. So now I kind of proven that. I think
we've made it.
that
We've made
I am
you've
able.
designed a
Yeah,
game. 100%.
we did.
Exactly. Too bloody right.
Now there's it's out to the public now, open space. Everyone can see that I have made a game.
Exactly.
It's not just my prototypes in here.
No, we've made a game. We've played it. We've played it on a stream. Absolutely. It's really cool. It's really cool. It's really fun. I think this is why it's so much enjoyable. I think the thing for me is the thinking about, this morning, could I have in any way predicted up front that I would be involved in the creation of a Polyonymo voting game? No. And then the fact that it's coming into this and then say, oh, well, obviously what's going to happen is that. And instead it's just and that's what I think that's exactly the magic we were talking about earlier on.
Because like yesterday we were talking about having like a dungeon exploration crawler thing, and I was thinking, you'll flip a tile and on the other side you have whatever happens when you interact with the tile, and that's kind of where we were yesterday. So to come into this with houseboats and everything, it's a big step.
Oh, completely. Completely. That's the way it goes.
I still want to make the dungeon crawler with you though.
You've got to do it. You've got to do it. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that it would be nice if people made something for this game jam that fulfills this criteria. So it would be really cool if you did. But I think that the voting system, even if you can't work out a way to make it work so that Tom or Alex or someone can just jump in as they want, then, it's still worth exploring out with the realms of this. But in any case, I've set up a Discord thing with the Houseboat Moguls. I've put in Tom's idea, which was great. And with Alex saying, what if you just had to pick one, not voting? Wouldn't you always just draw the most awkward shape for everyone else then? Unless you get to pick it yourself like we did at the start.
I think this is where this axis of whether or not you can see it on showing it on camera or whatever, it comes in quite interestingly, because I think it's you would be optimized. You would be if you can't see everyone, then you just generically go for difficult shapes, I would guess. But if you can see what people are doing, then there's a question of, actually the shapes become more contextually difficult or not. Because often in these games, you get to a point where like, I could really do with this really weird shape here. So actually, like, it's kind of, I think that gets quite interesting.
Yeah, and I found myself twice that I could have really needed this shape, and no one was giving that to me. I could have really needed it. It would have solved my entire problem. Yeah,
there you go. So, and I think, and I always feel like the more contextually rich you can make something, like the generally the better, just because it means that there's just like more design space that everyone's sort of playing around.
I mean, that is a thing. I think it's definitely limiting the kinds of games possible to make, but I think it is ideal if we can make games that maybe someone doesn't have a video camera. I know it sounds like surely people should have just some people might not have been able to set up their webcam. Maybe
not everyone does,
are
right?
just in really bad lighting. They aren't able to show whatever. And but
let's maybe we'll wrap this up so I can catch a bus. And then,
sorry. Let's do that. And I have already pasted Dina and James's stuff into all the channels, but let's do
Okay.
it again in, maybe it's a co-op. So, Dina, where do you like to be found?
On Twitter or on Instagram is my preferred places to be found. You can also find me, obviously, super easily on Facebook, because I'm in all the groups. I literally be in every single one of them, where English is the primary speaking language, writing language. I'm also available on LinkedIn if people are curious as to what I'm doing. I haven't updated in forever, but yeah, it's definitely Instagram and Twitter is the easiest ones.
Excellent.
And James.
So for me, Twitter's probably the best place to get me, at Naylor James on Twitter. And obviously, yes, you can find my naylorgames.com website, so you can find out about Magnate. And then going generally to the magnategame.com takes you to also to the Kickstarter page where you can learn more about Magnate, the first city. Which, Dina, at some point, you mentioned real estate. I feel like we have to discuss that at some point.
Yes. I was looking at the video yesterday and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I am in love. I need.
It was just try to be the ultimate property game. So we will absolutely want to discuss another time.
So, to recap, what have we been doing? We've been talking about games for a date. What colors or smells? Was it? Yeah. What
sounds
have? Sound? Yeah. What sound or smell your favorite color would have? And we talked about pie trivia, maybe drawing or writing, about a dinosaur party, about cleaning a room. And then we ended up with this thing that we played a couple of times. And it's like a game about voting. That seems like definitely something that I've not seen before, where you vote on which polyomino you want to use. And so, yeah, if you want to find me, I'm stuffwithbez.com, stuffwithbez.com, twitter.com/stuffbez, instagram.com/stuffbez, twitch.tv/stuffbez. I'm streaming every day at 10 a.m. UK time, youtube.com/stuffbez for all the old episodes, stuffwithbez.com/discord. Join the Discord if you want to follow along with the game jam, and that's going on until Saturday morning, so you've got plenty of time. And just a quick thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dina. Thank you, James. You have been amazing. Thank you, everyone in the chat. You are all super awesome. And I do want to quickly ask, over to you. What are you up to? You can share anything you want to. So, is there something you need to get done, something that you're looking forward to getting done, exciting, boring, serious, or frivolous? What are you looking forward to doing? Dina?
I am getting a brochure sent to me tomorrow or possibly today for MeepUpCon that I'm going to send in for getting feedback on Facebook groups that I'm in. So I'm super excited about. This is going to be the biggest con that I'm kind of doing with a group of people that call Meeps for Peeps. And it's going to be for my birthday, so it's going to be the best 33rd year birthday ever. I'm literally having a con. So yeah, I'm super stoked about working on that a bit more.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
James?
So I'm catching up with my colleague and developer Jaya today, and we're going to be spending loads of time going through discussing all sorts of projects we're working on. We've got about 3 or 4 games in the pipeline right now, and I'm hopeful that when I've got a game that's hopefully arriving with someone who's going to be a reviewer who's going to be taking a look at it at a very early stage soon as well. So lots of exciting stuff going on.
I always finish up this thinking, what am I going to do? You know what? I'm going to have a very small thing. I'm looking forward to having last night's dinner. That's it. So I'm about to eat breakfast and I'm about to eat last night's dinner. But now we are going to read Idle Michael, who's a lovely person, makes games. Check out my future streams at stuffbybez.com/streams. Tomorrow, Friday, anyone is welcome to jump in. So if either of you two want to jump in, or if anyone else, hey, I fancy jumping in, just make sure to be in the Twitch chat and I will share the link to join me on video. We will talk about whatever. Saturday, Sunday, we're wrapping this up. And next week, it's going to be exciting. I'm going to have my first stream that is at a semi-arbitrary time with Kathleen Mercury next Monday. And so it's going to be at 3 p.m. UK time, so it's suitable for Americans. And so we'll see how it goes. It's going to be
Lovely.
basically just meeting Kathleen Mercury. Please, if you think that sounds cool, share, spread the word, get other people involved. If you want to join in the raid, please feel free to copy paste some of that. For now, there's only one thing left to say. Well, firstly, Alex is going to think of some projects to pitch for future collaborations. Sounds awesome.
Fantastic.
And yeah, that brings us to the close, I think. Anything else?
No, I think
Bye,
so.
bye, bye, bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Where's James gone? James is no longer with us. Where's Beth? Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.